In this podcast, we look at the beginnings of using more advanced PHP and MySQL techniques. One of the things we're going to look at in this podcast in particular is how to go about creating a web page that predominantly is based on content with external files acting as our header and footer. Notice in this PHP file, which is from Ullman's PHP MySQL book, readily available on their website, that we have an index PHP file, and I've put this in a directory just to keep it separate from all my other work and to make it more organized. Notice that this web page only has some content in it along with the include files. So we have an include header file. Notice this dot includes directory points to the directory off of the same directory that the index file is located in. Then we have our content, and then we have another PHP segment with our include information. Again, dot includes footer.html points to this footer file, which is in the includes directory off of the directory relative to our index file. If I look at my header file, it's all in HTML, and look how it's structured. We have a head, like you would normally expect and want to have. This also has an external style sheet, includes styles.css, which is again relative to where it's going to be. So if this file is used in the index.php file, when this is created or rendered, it needs to be in a directory that the file can use, which would be the includes directory. Then we have the start of our body. Notice that it's only the start of the body. In this case, I'm using a div construct, so I've got a div for my header, very simple header with a navigation div pointing to some other files in my in this current directory. Then I have half a div. That is, I have the beginning of a div tag so that it's going to include my content. If I go back to my index.php file, I can see that all of what we were just looking at would be created at the very beginning of the rendered file. Right after that div tag is used, I then have this h1 tag through all these paragraphs of text. Then I hit, again, my other PHP segment, and if I look at the footer, the very first thing I see there is the close of my div tag and the start of my footer div tag, and then body HTML to close it out. Notice again, this footer HTML file and the header HTML file are both entirely HTML content. They make this a valid web page. If I go to a web browser to look at this, I can see that I have a web page with all the parts and pieces that we've just looked at. So this is a good starting point for you to test and play with the files that we were just looking at. In our next podcast, we'll look at how to make a connection to a database from the same type of document on our website. This has been Mike Shore from the Web Technologies Department.